Hi everybody, my name is Emma and this is Emma Rose and Books. Today is a mixture of two sorts of videos. I want to do my wrap up for December because I'm not going to get anything else completed this month, and also because I wanted to include my best books of 2018 before the year is finished. So without further ado, what have I been reading this month? So I started with, where's it gone? Oh, this one, a book club read. And this one is called A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This was supposed to be our Halloween read, but it didn't come in time, so we ended up reading something. We did like a pick and mix. My friend who organises the group just went into the library and picked up any books that looked interesting and wrapped them up and put a little quote on them. So we had those instead because our books haven't come in. So it was meant to be the Halloween book, but anyway, we read it in December for Christmas instead. Initially I actually didn't want to read it because I don't really like horror, and the only thing I could really say I've ever read is Silence of the Lambs and that series, which isn't strictly horror anyway. And it says on the front, there's a quote from Stephen King that says, "Scared the living hell out of me and I'm pretty hard to scare." And I was like, do you know what, if this scares Stephen King, I want to read it. And I messaged my friend and said, do you know what, I'm out on this one. And she said, no, honestly, it's not that bad, read it. So I did. And I gave this one 3 stars. Well, I should read you the blurb. It says, "The lives of the Barretts, a suburban New England family. A torn apart when 14-year-old Marjorie begins to display signs of acute schizophrenia. To her parents' despair, the doctors are unable to halt Marjorie's descent into madness. As their stable home devolves into a house of horrors, they reluctantly turn to a local Catholic priest for help and soon find themselves the unwitting stars of The Possession, a hit reality television show." 15 years later, a best-selling writer interviews Marjorie's younger sister Mary. As she recalls the terrifying events that took place when she was just 8 years old, long-buried secrets and painful memories begin to surface, and a mind-bending tale of psychological horror is unleashed. Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars. For a start, it's not really my kind of thing, but actually it isn't particularly scary, in my opinion. In a large part, it focuses on the idea of the unreliable narrator. So it's constantly questioning whether Mary, who is the main kind of character that's talking most of the time, whether she remembers things accurately or whether she's been skewed by watching the TV show of her childhood and she was only young. And then there's questions about then the things that were seen on the television show, you know, were they a trick of the filming, and then the question of whether the sister is actually ill, you know, whether it's a psychological issue or whether it is a paranormal thing. It was very readable. You know, it didn't particularly disturb me in any way, and I would say that it was interesting that when it finished you were left with questions going, oh well, I wonder if this was real or that was real. If you are big into horror films and horror books, you may enjoy this because there are lots of references that I didn't particularly get, other than the things that are well known, like references to The Exorcist. I haven't seen The Exorcist, but I get it. But there are lots of those kind of things where I feel like you'd get more out of it. For me, it was readable, but you know, it was okay. So 3 stars for that one. Then I read The Number One Ladies Detective Agency by Alexander McCall Smith. I've seen this one around so much. I mean, it came out quite a while ago, I think. It came out in 2003, no sorry, that's a lie, 1998 it was first published. And it says, "Wayward daughters, missing husbands, philandering partners, curious conmen. If you've got a problem and no one else can help you, then pay a visit to Precious Ramotswe, Botswana's only and finest female private detective." I'm going to leave the rest because, you know, it's quite a long blurb. And as I said, seen it around. I picked it up in a charity shop. So I thought, oh, I haven't actually read this, and I've seen it doing the rounds. How many times am I going to say that? And you know, it was good. I didn't really know what to expect. First of all, author picture, hats off to best author picture ever, just casually leaning on a tuba and with like a printer on the floor behind him. And I just liked it. I was like, oh, cool. What I really enjoyed about this book is the setting. I've never been to Africa, but it felt, compared to other books I've read set in Africa, it felt very African. I don't know, maybe somebody who's been to Africa or is African would disagree, but to me it gave me that vibe of a place that I haven't been to. I liked the way that she solved the crimes, and I liked the kind of crimes, and it was quite cute and heartwarming. I like the way that that then tied in with her life and going into her life stories and things. I just thought it was really nice, a nice read, an interesting read. I liked it. I'd actually like to check out some others in the series, so I think I gave that one 4 stars. I liked it. The next one, the last one I read this year, my son wrapped up a present and said to me, oh, this isn't actually a present for you to keep, this is just for you to borrow. So he wrapped me up a borrowing present. Is that a thing? I actually quite like the idea, given that I'm kind of into decluttering and minimalism. I like the idea that you wrap something up and say, but I want it back. It's not for you to keep. Anyway, it was a book of his called The 9 Lives of Montezuma by Michael Morpurgo. I've read War Horse, I haven't read any others of his. And so I gave this a quick read. And it was really nice. This is a 4-star read as well. It's just kind of like a simple tale about a cat, really. The blurb is, his ears were pointed sharply and were long enough to be those of a wildcat. The farmyard was his kingdom. He had made it so. This is the story of the 9 lives of one very special cat, from impetuous young kitten to the king of the farmyard. Wherever Montezuma goes, adventure and excitement are sure to follow. So yeah, it was. But in the same way as I think all Michael Morpurgo, oh my god, books are, because I've read bits of other ones where my son's been reading them and I've read sections of them, I think they're always quite sad in parts and emotional, and I like that actually in a kid's book, that it doesn't shy away from those things. So it does have elements of that. If you love cats, Dane Reads, I'm looking at you. If you're a cat lover, I think you'd really enjoy this. It's just, you know, it's a children's book, but it is just a lovely story about a cat. What more is there to say? So then, that's all I read this month, just 3 books, because Christmas. And as you may have seen from my vlog, I went to Copenhagen, and we were leading up to that, preparing for the wedding, and then there was other stuff. December's actually been really nuts with life things. So I haven't had an awful lot of reading time. You'd think going to Copenhagen I'd have time to sort of sit and read, but we were with loads of family, and in fact the whole Christmas period I had family for about 5 or 6 days staying with me, and it means that I just can't like go off and read like I normally would. You have to like be sociable, so I just haven't managed to read that much, which is a shame. But I would like to share with you my best reads of 2018. These are in no particular order. These were my 5-star reads of the year. I'm not going to go into masses of detail because I have done already on my wrap-ups. So the first one, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I read this because of the series. I absolutely flaming loved it. It's chilling and amazingly readable and thought-provoking and awesome, and really if you haven't read it, this book is incredible and I thoroughly recommend that you do. Next on my pile is Call the Midwife. Again, seen the series, hadn't ever read the book, so I did, and for me this was just very nostalgic because some of my family are from London, and so it kind of gave me the feels in that respect, but also the stories are just so beautiful, and especially when you know that they are based on real events, very kind of heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, just as the series is. So if you like the series, you definitely like the book. If you haven't seen the series, then you probably like the book anyway. Really good. Next on my list is All the Light We Cannot See, another one that I had seen people talking about and I thought I'd give it a go. It's based in the Second World War, and it's about a French girl and a German boy and sort of how they come together, and I just, on this one, the writing was just sublime, and I just thought it was so clever and beautiful and gorgeous, and I loved it. Again, so I recommend all of them because these are my best books of the year. That one was good too. Next is another wartime one, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I have seen some people saying they really hate this. What I loved about it, firstly, is that it was written from the viewpoint of death, which I quite like that. Also, the way that, the imagery of it again, the way that it was described, because it's described by a character that isn't human, and the way that the narrative kind of sometimes starts with like somebody dying because death already knows that they've died, and then it goes back and explains it so you know the end point, and I like that when you kind of know where it's going. It's clever rather than the usual way, the linear way, so I enjoyed that, and it had a bit of music in it, and book, love, and it was just nice. It was, well, it's not that nice, but I liked the read. Next one, I read this quite early in the year actually, The Princess Bride. I love the film, I wanted to read the book, and I was worried because I love the film so much that I'd be disappointed with the book, but I was not. It's even better. It's quite avant-garde. It's got these strange sections in it where it goes a little off-piste, and it's very, very funny, and it gives more backstory to some of the characters. It's and it has sections that aren't in the film. So yeah, again, if you love the film you would love this, but even so, if you're into kind of funny and a bit weird stuff, this is fantastic. Then I've got Boys Don't Cry by Malorie Blackman. I picked this up because I'd heard her being interviewed on Desert Island Discs, and I saw this in a charity shop and thought, oh, I should give that a go. I actually still really want to read Noughts and Crosses, which I know is the really well-known one that she wrote. This is kind of a YA book, but it was just beautiful. The concept is that a lad gets left with, he finds out that his ex-girlfriend has had a baby, and she just says, oh, have the baby and I'm going to pop out for a minute, and then she doesn't come back, so he gets left with the baby. It's very emotive and very thought-provoking of the concept of, we think about a girl who finds out she's pregnant and then has to deal with that, but being able to engineer that situation whereby it's a guy kind of not finding out he's pregnant, but like, here's a baby, deal with it. I think that it was clever getting that scenario and then showing the emotional processes, and just an amazing family and a lot of interesting ideas explored. It's very emotional and lovely, and I really enjoyed that. Next up is the Positive Breastfeeding book by Amy Brown, and this came out about a month before mine did. Professor Amy Brown is fantastic. If you're interested in breastfeeding, follow her on Twitter or Facebook. She is constantly coming out with really, really amazing stuff. And I believe she's working on another book at the moment. This is like a, goes through everything you'd ever need to know about different situations, breastfeeding, and all the information. She is a researcher, so she is very based in science, but it's written very accessibly. I like how it's written. You can see I found lots of useful information in there, so yeah, this is really, really good. If you're into breastfeeding, then take a look at that. It's good. And then finally, why is this the one I'm ending with? I don't actually have the book of this because I read it on Kindle, which actually I could have brought my Kindle in, but my husband bought me the DVD for Christmas, so that's why I brought this in. I never got a chance, because of the baby, to go and see this at the cinema, so he bought me the DVD and we're going to have a film night. So The Meg by Steve Alten. Have I even remembered that right? I hope so. I'll do a thing if I didn't. It's somebody Alten. Anyway, the film's got Jason Statham in, and the book, I'm including it even though technically it wasn't a 5-star read, because I gave it 5 stars and 2 stars simultaneously, because it's absolute trash, but I loved every minute of it. It's really fun, it's really stupid, it's one of those kind of, when you're reading it go, I cannot believe that this book exists. So I'm giving it 2 for literary merit and 5 for how much I enjoyed it. It was brilliant. So it was one of my favourite books of the year, and it will definitely be a reread for me, and I want to read the rest of the series. So I actually read 42 books this year. I've never kept any kind of record of my reading before. So I'm really pleased with myself. I have no idea how that compares with the past. I set a Goodreads target of 30 because I had no clue. And considering that during this year I brought out my book, and I had other family stuff, and just when I look at all the events that have happened this year, I think the fact that I read 42 books is awesome. So I'm going to set a target of 50 for next year and see how I get on. Please do follow me on Goodreads if you would like to, and of course on Twitter and Instagram and on Facebook as well. All the links are below, where I talk about my reading and I also talk about my writing. And of course there will be more videos coming up soon, so I will see you all for the next one. Bye!